What were we calling this?
We had two names. I don't think we came up with one. We picked one.
All right.
Legends of Luck and Lore.
We'll stick something in the title. This is our first episode of a podcast that we're trying to do. This is my YouTube channel currently. I mainly do 3D printing stuff, but we need somewhere to put this. This might get ported over to another YouTube channel eventually, but for now we're going to talk about D&D stuff for character creation, tips for new players, what makes good world building, and other stuff like that. So I guess who I am is I'm Nathan. Been playing D&D for 3 years. Started with some coworkers. Went from there. I played fighter rogue multi-class, and druid, ranger, and then went full druid after that.
I'm Toby. I'm kind of the forever DM of our group. Before that, I got the chance to play a couple different players in other groups. I think I've played every class at this point, minus monk, ranger, artificer. I think I've played all other classes though. Hardcore druid main. They have my heart. I love them. Turning into a bear is always cool.
Yeah.
I've been playing for 5-6 years now, but I've been kind of the DM for 3 years now, probably 2 or 3 years.
We've been playing for about 2 years, and I'm sure you were DMing before that.
Yeah,
so
2 or 3 years, and then a couple one-shots before that. But I DM a lot more than I play now. Seems to be the story of all the DMs.
Oh, once you do, you're good at it, so you do what you're
it's fun.
At.
I like doing it. I think I like doing it more now. But
it depends on the group that you have.
Yeah.
Because if you're DMing for a group that you're like, yeah, this is fun, but I'd rather do something else.
Yep.
That'll work.
Yeah.
I guess first question we have is not necessarily once you're into D&D, what are some questions to ask your DM for good character creation?
That's cool. I think some of the biggest things to ask is just what's the setting like? How are we starting the campaign? How can I tie my characters to NPCs or the other characters? Those are really big things to ask your DM. I feel like a lot of new players end up asking the question, what's the best class to play? Mm-hmm. And that's such a hard question to answer. There's not really a best class. If you're playing Curse of Strahd, maybe it's a cleric, maybe it's a paladin. Almost everywhere online will say Ranger is an awful class. It's not good, but then you go watch the first season of Critical Role, go watch Vox Machina. It's an Oops All Dragon campaign, and the Dragon Ranger knew her stuff really, really well, and like that comes in really clutch. There's not really a best class until you start talking to your DM. As a DM, I would say talk to him as much as possible. If he gives you setting tips 2 months before the campaign, bring it up at every chance you can. He'll probably end up telling you if you're a ranger, hey, pick this monster type, pick this region. You'll get tied into a lot of NPC backstories. You'll get tied in with the other characters. But
I think you told me when we started our previous one, it's like, hey, aberrations are going to be a big thing in this one.
Yeah.
So you use it as your favorite enemy. And then I was like, well, try to multi-classing. We'll go full druid.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people think multi-classing has to be the way. Some people are just drawn in by the allure of what I don't have. But at the same time, like, you're going to miss out at higher levels on other stuff. It's not always the best.
I couldn't hold my wild shapes for as long, or I couldn't do as much damage. And so I said, we already have a ranger in the party.
Yep.
Screw it. I'll go full druid.
And having a full druid came in pretty clutch there at the end too. But, yeah, that's my thing. Just as much as you can talk to your DM, I would ask the setting. I would ask about characters, both your other PCs and the NPCs. And then those are kind of the two biggest things to ask your DM, and the rest fall into those.
I think going back to the people wonder what class to play, and I was told that when I was getting into it, it was if you're a first-time player, don't pick a spellcaster.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that also comes along with the conversation with your DM to say, hey, I don't understand this, how to play this. Will you help me through this and get through this? Because I was told go fighter for your first character. And if you don't like it, you can switch to spellcaster. But as long as you have help through playing a character, then I think it'd be a lot easier than just be like, hey, just do martial classes for now. But like spellcasters are so much fun. You can do so much more.
If it's your first character, some people are going to say shy away from spellcasters. And yeah, there's a lot more going on, but I say go for it. My first character ever was a wild magic sorcerer. Like canonically one of the hardest things going on between meta magic and all your spells, and you're locked into spells when you pick them at levels, and wild surge. And
it's another nice thing about druid is you can change your spells every day.
But there's a lot going on with wild magic sorcerer, and the group I was playing with had me, 2 other people that had never played D&D before, and a DM who had run a total of 3 one-shots before that.
Oh, that was...
So nobody really knew what we were doing, but we all had a ton of fun. And in the end, that's what really matters, is that you have fun with that story. I'm pretty sure that DM just took the plot of Dark Souls 3, and we just walked through that as a D&D party with some big scary monsters, and nobody cared. It was a lot of fun, and the first 2 sessions of that as a sorcerer were rough. I didn't know what to do. My turns felt wasted. But then after just a session or 2, I started to figure out my routine in combat. Like, okay, these are what I can do. These are what I can lean on. These work well. And from there, the world just becomes your oyster. You get your 1 or 2 things that you do figure out, and you just start branching out from there, and it all works out great.
I was going to say something. Forgot. Anyways. I guess that was at what questions to ask your DM. I was just having a conversation with him. I guess going from there, you might get tips from your DM, but what tips do you have for new players?
Go in, have fun. Don't be shy. I know it's hard. It's weird. You're in there with a group of friends, and some of them are probably doing silly voices. And
I'm still shy. I don't like roleplay very much. I like battles, and like I'd probably be great at Warhammer because that's what Warhammer is. I'm pretty sure it's just running battles, but I'm still shy. He can attest. I don't talk much as the druid, but I'm trying to be different with this next campaign.
There's nothing wrong with it either. It's just come into it, say, hey, I'm willing to learn, to be a little bit outside my comfort zone. You're probably going to look your friends in the eye, and he's going to DM or she's going to DM, and they're going to do a really silly voice for a goblin, and it's okay to giggle at them. It's just fine. You guys are there to have fun in the end. But biggest tip is just go. Be willing to get out of your comfort zone just a little bit and have fun with it. Communicate with people. This is an awesome game where you can have some pretty compelling stories that happen. You can get tied to characters that are only ever real in the voices of the people around a table. But it's also a game where you can do literally whatever you want. And go have fun with that. Like, the world's your oyster there.
Go burn down the innkeeper's inn. Go do that.
Go burn someone's house down.
You'll probably get arrested for it if your DM is smart.
There will always be consequences, but go make friends with an NPC. In our last campaign, Larry, we had an NPC that in like a session 0 that was kind of only ran with half the party. It was a whole wedding scene. There was a prince's guard that got attacked by an intellect devourer, came out of it alive, but lost half his brain. My name's Larry. Couldn't count past 4 because at 5 he didn't know how many fingers he had left. Real stupid guy. And
we brought him along with us, and it was just for kicks and giggles.
And it seems like that's always the case with these characters. And as those characters go, Larry had to make a sacrifice, and it was rough. But this is a game where those stupid characters can just like weave their way into your heart. We have t-shirts made of Larry now.
We have one. When he made that sacrifice, we all work at the same place in our group, and we said if we got our head manager to wear this t-shirt, he would have to bring him back. And we got our head manager to wear this t-shirt, and so Larry came back as an angel.
But just go have fun. Get to know these characters, get to know this world, explore it. Don't be afraid to grow attached to an NPC. It might suck for 10 minutes at one point, but it's gonna be worth it.
How many people were crying around the table when Larry, I think it was at least 3.
At least 4, because I was.
Yeah.
I don't know. If not all of us, all but 1 or 2. There was a lot.
That's like, if you need a good reason to get into D&D, it's to feel emotion.
Yeah.
Because you're free, as long as you're comfortable with the people around you, you're free to feel certain emotions at the table. And it's, I don't know, it's almost like it's a part of yourself.
Therapeutic, cathartic.
Because I think it's an Adventuring Academy, one of the other ones with Brennan Lee Mulligan, but he says that like your eye and your mind's eye don't distinguish between real and fake. Because if you imagine it in your mind, like it's happening in your mind, and you can still see that it's going on. And so you can feel real emotion for these fake characters.
Yeah.
And it's a lot.
That's my tip for new players is just sit at the table. Don't be afraid to just get into the world all the way in. Like everybody else at the table wants to do it too. No one's going to judge you or think if anyone says you're a nerd doing it, you can just look at them and say, how much dice do you have in your lap there?
Yeah. And if they make you uncomfortable, maybe that's not the group for you.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to have a conversation with your DM and say, hey, this person made me uncomfortable. We need to set rules for that. Or we need to, if that player's making everyone else uncomfortable, kick them out.
Yeah. Everyone's there to have a good time. And I think the best way to that is just to get into the meat and potatoes, to get as into the world as you can.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, what else do we have here? I guess a lot of this goes back to have conversations with your DM, but how much backstory would be good to have for, let's say it's your first character coming in, you've had a 5-minute conversation with your DM, what should you go home and make for your character?
I would say that's something you need to work with your DM on. Every group is going to be different. Every campaign is going to be different. But work with your DM. There are sometimes I had a player that sent me, I think it was 31 pages of backstory. And that was cool. That was awesome. But I used about 3/4 of a page of that. Maybe we need to clip that out so she doesn't see that. But I don't care. You can leave that in.
Oh, wow.
And I've had other people that have left me 3 sentences and I've used every word of that and been super satisfied. It's something to talk to your DM about. I would avoid the just like, oh, I was an orphan, grew up on the streets. My name's Bilgo the Goblin or whatever. Like I would put a little bit of detail into it. The more detail, the more usable detail that you can give your DM, I think the more fun you're going to have. The easier it's going to be to get driven into that world. But you also, the key word there is usable. I don't need to know what you had for breakfast on your 12th birthday. It's never going to come up.
I just give you, a page and a half?
And it was perfect.
It was incomplete.
But it was perfect. It was perfect. I could tie, his character was Asteros. I could tie Asteros into that world really well. Tied him in with the rest of the party within 10 minutes of the first session.
Yeah.
Had them all in. He had ties to NPCs, both that these guys, that everybody else in the party knew, and NPCs that only Asteros knew.
Because I think part of my backstory was I was the lone survivor in a big battle.
Yep.
And so they were the generals in like Ace's army, which was another player, you know. And so like I had this medallion that gave me proof that I was in this battle. And so I had a secondary connection to another player.
Yeah. But it was, everybody got tied together pretty fast, pretty quick. And all you needed was 3/4 of a page. And if it's incomplete, that's fine. We can work with that as the campaign goes. But it's something to talk to your DM about. They'll probably give you, hey, I would like this much of a backstory, or avoid giving me this much. That's what I try to do, is say, hey, I need somewhere between a half a page and 2 pages of backstory, 2 or 3. I think I said 6, but just for the one player.
What format would you like it in? Do you want like bullet points, like this stuff happened to me, or do you want it like you're writing a novel, like, well, not like a full novel, but like a couple pages of a novel, speaking in, I think it's first person, like this is what happened to me as...
Both of them are awesome. Honestly, I like both of those. I don't know that I have a preference. I am going to take your, as a DM, I go take your backstory, go into my world notes of so many pages of world notes that I have all connected, and I make a note for you, and then I turn it into bullet points, but my bullet points are going to be a little bit different from the bullet points you send me or the story that you send me. If you send me a story, that gives me a chance to be like, oh, you saw this thing. It wasn't exactly as you remember it. If you give me bullet points, some of those might be like, okay, I don't need this. I don't plan on using this at all. This is for them to use in their role play. Mm-hmm. But then I might find another bullet point that I say, Astros, this is a perfect example. Astros said, after this battle, I was in the woods and a dryad healed me, and I worked with them to work on this nature magic for a while. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, what are you thinking of this dryad? And Nathan said, go for it. So under that bullet point, I added its own little list, and I said, okay, this is the dryad's name. This is where they're at. This is the control they have over the forest. This is how horny they are.
And if we were, I don't know if we were recording sessions at that point.
I don't know either.
But it was about 30 minutes of laughter. It was 30 minutes of other players' laughter, and like I was a bit embarrassed, but I was still having a good time. But I gave him free reign, so it's, it's not his fault.
Yeah.
But that was probably, other than like, I don't know, other funny moments, but that's probably one of the number 5 funny moments
5,
in our campaigns. And
still a joke to this day.
Oh, it is. And I think it was in the first session I let my bird die. Guess what? Still a joke.
Still a joke. But that's the thing, is if you send me bullet points, some of them might just get striked from my notes, and I'll say, okay, that's something for them to role play with. And other things I'm going to say, okay, this is awesome. This ties into my world building. This is something that I want to tie into this story, help bring this character and make them feel like a main character. And then I add a whole sub list to that one bullet point. So I don't know if a story or bullet points are better. They just have different aspects. Mm-hmm. That other character, Covey, her backstories come in a first-person story. And it's really cool for me because I get to read that and I say, okay, she mentioned this at this point in this fight or this event or whatever, and then she doesn't mention it again. And I get to go, okay, I get to kind of reach into that character's memory and mold it like clay and say, yeah, you remember this bit, but your mind is just blocking out what happened next, or you didn't happen to see what happened next, or whatever it happens to be. Those are all really cool things that I can do with that. So I don't know that there's a preference for me, at least. That's something to talk to your DM about, but I love both of those.
We gone tips for new players. Have we gone over key for good character creation? I don't think we have.
I don't think we have.
Okay, so what is the key to creating a well-rounded character? I would say.
Key to a well-rounded, a fulfilling a character that's just fun to play from start to finish, not just the first 3 sessions. So I've had characters that are fun for about 3 sessions, and then I'm like, okay, this is really boring really fast.
I think I tried to DM a Star Wars thing, and he had a Jawa that was in white robes or something.
That was my second one.
That was your second. What was your first one? I think I created it for you.
I don't remember the race, but it was essentially the SW5E version of a rogue. We rolled up stats. I ended up with my lowest stat being like a 14 or a 13 or something.
And everything else was like 18s.
And my sneak attack was a one-shot kill on everything at that level because nobody else in the party was as strong as I was at that point. And
which just wasn't fun because
it wasn't fun. Yeah, it was, okay, I'm going to sit at the back and just snipe at these guys, and it doesn't matter. Like, I'm going to trivialize the encounter for everyone at the table. Wasn't fun for me, wasn't fun for Nathan, wasn't fun for anybody at that table. So I switched it up. And the next character I rolled, I actually ended up rolling 5 of my stats as positives. Then I rolled a 10 and I said no. And I kept rolling until I had a negative in one stat. That's one key that I would say is give your character a real tangible flaw, whether that's mechanically, whether that's my character is impulsive and stupid and is not going to think about a fight before they pick it. Give them a real flaw, something that they can overcome or they can learn or that can hold them back for the entirety of the campaign. In another campaign, in Curse of Strahd, I'm playing a Twilight Cleric. Objectively, they are really, really good. Twilight Clerics are really good. But I was like, I want a negative in dexterity. And everybody's like, oh, just take it in intelligence. You're not going to use intelligence. And I was like, that's the point, is I want the negative in something that I will roll every single combat with initiative. And so far in that campaign, I've rolled 3 zeros on initiative. And I love that. It makes it fun. It makes this character, her name's River, it makes River just feel alive and that there's something going on. And then she has other flaws of just like, she's a cleric that worships 2 gods that are in conflict with each other because her parents did. So there's this whole like mental thing of like, okay, I don't really know where my powers are coming from right now. Give your character a flaw. That's one big thing I would say. Another one I would say is you can call it a gimmick, you can call it a quirk, you can call it a shtick, a theme, whatever it is. Give your character one of those, something you can always fall back on when you don't know how to roleplay. I'll keep using River as an example. She's a Twilight Cleric and she's a Water Genasi. And I looked at those things and I said, what do those 2 things have in common thematically? And something that a lot of religions and world beliefs have between water and Twilight is the idea of change. So I said, okay, River is going to be all about change. That's her entire motif, is like things have to change around River. She has to be changing herself. Pick a theme, run with that theme. It's awesome. I played another character. He was an Air Genasi. He was not my first character, but he was also a wild magic sorcerer, and he dealt drugs. And I named him Whiff. I thought of the name Whiff and said, what all can I tie to this? He whiffs spells, he sells whiffs, and he's literally a whiff of wind. Just pick your theme, run with it. That's something that I love to do with my characters, because your character doesn't just have to be that shtick, but it gives you something to fall back on. In our last campaign, there was a player that played a prince named Ace. And
what was his flaw?
Not wanting to be a prince. He desperately didn't want to be a prince. He did not want the responsibility. He had a whole second life working for a secret organization, the Platinum Cloister.
Oh.
Yeah.
Apparently I've been paying attention.
It only came up like twice.
Okay.
It came up with one connection. But
that was the information guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Al.
Yeah.
See, you did pay attention. You knew. There was a lot. It was like a year-long campaign. There was a lot that happened.
Yeah.
But
I think we only started recording the last half of it.
Yeah. But he had that shtick, like, I'm a prince. And his wife was another character at the table, and it was like, I'm a prince, I'm worried about my wife. Like, he could always fall back on that as when he was role-playing. He's just like, okay, I got this shtick, I got this theme going, which was pretty awesome. It worked really, really well.
I don't want to get too personal, but you can definitely tell, like, that's a connection that player and that character have both in-game and out of game.
Yeah.
And so, like, I guess you can make these characters complete opposite of yourselves, but within every character, there is at least, like, 1% of you, but you could make it more. Like, I think I tried to create a 3.5 character or some addition character with an old high school friend of mine, and she was like, you can just make your character you. And I was like, okay, how do I do that? And she helped me create it. I just had like stats for myself. And then I was like, I was trying to join another coworker's campaign, and I sent him the character. He goes, looks like a cool character. That's the wrong edition.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. But I don't know. I think it'd be kind of cool to make characters of ourselves, although we'd all have mostly average stats.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it's fine to just take your personality and stick it into your character, no matter what your character's build is.
Mm-hmm.
I know realistically I can't turn into a panther, but my first druid was just a little halfling with my personality thrown in.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it was. Is I literally think I named him Yibot, and it was just Toby backwards, and like, it was just me. And it was fun. I loved it. But don't be afraid to change things or explore other things there. But you're always going to have a little bit of your personality in your character. If you try to avoid it, you're probably going to lean into it on accident.
I think that's the same thing that like actors do. Like they leave part of them in the character, and if they play the character long enough, that's within them.
Yep.
So if you do the same thing in D&D, watching Adventuring Academy again, it's just turning dials. Like if you turn up compassion 10%, turn down impulsivity 50%, so you really think about what you're going to do, or you understand this character better, sometimes better than you understand your actual self. You say, this is what this character would do in this situation.
Mm-hmm. Those are my biggest 2 tips for building a character. Other things we've already hit on. Talk to your DM. They'll help tie your character into the world. No matter how well you build a character, if they can't feel like the main character, you'll only have so much fun.
It depends on, I'd say how much fun you have depends on you. Because if you, again, depending on how good of a DM you are, you can do something with 3 sentences. But if you're a brand new DM and someone gives you 3 sentences, you go, I don't know how to do this. I can't guarantee you have fun here.
Yep. I've been there, and it's been hard. But it works out, I guess. You learn from it. The other thing I'd say is, it goes after character creation. Don't be afraid to fail.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times building a character, you have this fantasy in your head. You're like, I want to be big, strong monster barbarian. But it's not actually, you find out real quick, it's not actually fun to just be big and strong from the beginning. It becomes really fun when you meet a threat and you guys start throwing punches and you're the one that's on their ass. And then you come back in 3 sessions and you knock that guy out. That's what's really fun. Is the fun comes from failure and then growing out of that. That's the fantasy. To go back, you can tell we both love Dropout TV.
Yeah.
To go back, Dimension 20, Season 1, Fabian Aramaeus Seacaster.
Falling on those tables.
I wasn't thinking that. I'm thinking the tryouts with the Owl Bears.
Oh, yeah.
Is he built his character wearing a varsity jacket. He went into it and crushed every roll for the tryout. And then Brennan Lee Mulligan went, hit the showers. You're not on the team. And you can go watch. I think it was in
it's called
First Adventuring Academy.
I think it's called, maybe it's called Finding Fun in Failure.
Something like that.
What it's called.
But Lou Wilson talks about, like, that sucked. But then 3 sessions later, when they killed the coach of that team, of the Blood Rush team, and he's like screaming at him. And
I think he was like vomiting, and
I think he pissed his pants
himself, and like it was so much more satisfying to fail at first and then succeed again because you put more work into it.
Don't be afraid to fail. It's not fun. Go move outside of TTRPG. Endgame wouldn't be near as cool if they killed Thanos in Infinity War. Like, you have to fail to create the greatest cinematic moment in superhero history.
I think it kind of reminds me of a moment I had in our old coworkers campaign, was that I was sparring with Braden, but he had jacked up his AC with some sort of magical armor, and so it was like 20 or 21. But I was still a fighter, so I had some fairly good modifiers, but I was rolling everything like under 5, under 8, and I was down to like 10 health because we were about to take a short rest, so I was down to 10 health, and I could feel me Nathan getting very upset that I couldn't hit anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, so I talked to the guy running, I talked to DM, and I was like, hey, I couldn't hit past this AC. I need to work on my character. I need better weapons. I need to do something. I need better modifiers or strength or something. And he was like, okay, we can work on that. And so, like, it's not just having fun, but it's learning to say, this doesn't work for my character. I can change to be better.
How satisfying is that in the last fight when you know the AC is going to be jacked up, when you do land those big hits? Like, that's cool. That's what's satisfying. In this last campaign I ran, there was a big, scary lich BBEG, big, scary guy, and he tormented these guys the whole campain, literally since session 0.
I think in campaign, we were probably only in world for what, 2 months?
Yeah. But we got to the point that the players, not the characters, hated this guy.
Yes.
And they had some encounters with him. And I think back to
when he walked into our camp, pretty much threatened us all, and then we killed him. Like, one of our players cut off his head, and then he reconstituted at another dwarf that was standing by him, and we all went, oh crap.
And that fear, that failure of, like, he just let us kill him, and it meant nothing. But then later in the campaign, their characters were exhausted. They were inside the mouth of a volcano. It was not an easy fight. No. People died, people dropped. I don't think any of you guys perma died.
No, none of us
perma died. I think you all made it out of there.
We were low on health.
Everybody was real low. But that satisfaction of, like, we ended this threat, and it took everything. Like, I think you only used one of your wild shapes, but you used half your spell slots.
I used half my spell slots. I kept calling lightning on him.
That character Ace was an artificer, lost his steel defender, used every spell slot he had, used up every magical bullet he had.
I had used my other wild shape earlier in the day because I had to pick up someone else and
that
fly
was
them.
Dead.
Yeah, that was dead.
Like, but it's not satisfying to walk in, mob the BBEG, and walk out.
Yeah, because then you walk in and you go, well, that was it. You're like, you killed them, great. You know, what next? But that's not necessarily up to the player. I'd say that's up to the DM, because they can raise, HP, AC, or they can homebrew some nasty crap and say, oh, he's immune to every damage except psychic or whatever.
My tip, though, for players, don't be afraid to fail. Failure is not fun in the moment that it happens. So much fun 3 sessions later when you come back from that.
Yeah.
A redemption story is way cooler than a story of success. Unless you're Forrest Gump.
I've actually never seen Forrest Gump.
Wow. But, great show.
Yeah. What was I thinking? It's kind of like, can't remember the guy's name, but they came up with what every hero goes through, the hero's journey, And it's not, oh, they were immediately great, bad guy shows up, kill them. It's not how the story goes, because that'd be a boring story.
Yeah. Well, you think back to even the myths. Hercules, famous for just having 10 trials of incredible strength and just kind of doing them. Like, yeah, they were hard, but, like, he didn't face any real threat during that. Like, he did, but all said and done,
difficult.
All said and done, they were pretty easy for him compared to anybody else, minus a god. But before all of that happened, he went into a blood rage and killed his own family. Like, there was that drop.
I need to read Hercules, not just watch Disney.
There's that drop always. You have to go through those worst times to go through that highest high.
Mm-hmm.
Think Michael Jordan kicked off his sophomore basketball team. Now he's the greatest player ever, objectively. Like, there's the satisfaction in that story. And that's what we're playing with here, is stories with characters. And those are the stakes. Don't be afraid to fail and rise up out of the ashes.
So let's say we've hit communicate with your DM, give your character a flaw, be okay with failing, because you're gonna hopefully do better in the end, and maybe a page of backstory to help out your DM.
Yeah. And then I would say theme your character. Give your character that theme, that shtick, whatever it is that you can fall back on during roleplay. Because roleplay is hard. That's the hardest part of this game. Crunching numbers seems like the most complicated part. It's not. The hardest part is sitting down and pretending to be somebody else.
I think we've covered our main points, but if we want to keep going, we can keep going. When Covey was yelling at... What is Bert's character name?
Damien.
When Covey was yelling at Damien, I looked over at Kendall and myself, and we don't like people yelling, and us physically just kind of like shut down there, and we had to realize that it wasn't the player that was yelling, it was the character, and we had to be okay with, like, she's really pissed in this moment. She was very angry because it had to do with he had screwed something up with the BBG. I don't exactly remember what it was. She was pissed.
Yeah.
But we had to sit there and be like, okay, like, regroup ourselves, come back to the game.
And those are the moments you live for. Critical Role, I don't remember what episode it is exactly, but it's Scanlan. Just look it up. Scanlan, what's my mother's name? Like, it is one of the most intense moments you'll ever see at a TTRPG. Amazing moment.
I think I've seen the clip, but I can't remember what it entailed.
A bard looking at the rest of his party and saying, we have gone to hell for you. We have fought giants for you. We have done this for everybody. What's my mom's name? She died in my arms. Most important thing that's ever happened in my life. What's her name? What do you guys actually, how much do you actually care about my character? And it's this moment of just like that conflict and knowing the party's going to come out of it. That's where these stories and these characters come to life. But truly great role play. Sometimes it's uncomfy, but the best moments are born out of those uncomfortable situations. Diamonds made with pressure and heat.
I don't know. I probably shouldn't tell you this because we have to play the character again, but I had half hoped that, like, something would happen to the Dryad that had helped me, just so that I could roleplay something into it.
I thought the Dryad was going to die. Okay. Full stop. There was supposed to be a whole raid on that volcano, and the Dryad was going to come to their aid, and the raid ended up not happening. They started the fight 2 days early, and they didn't need the raid party to come. But a Dryad and an army of treants walking into a volcano is not literally waiting for a fire to happen. So it was in the notes. You guys just stopped it.
Yeah, I was just be like, because her name was, we pulled it out of a generator. I wish we didn't, but her name was Paraxithes or something like that.
Paraxithax, I think.
I don't know. I probably would have just called her P for short. But I had almost hoped that I could either try to revive her or give her, almost maybe sacrifice myself and give her back what magic she had given me just to save her.
And those moments are what's coolest.
Because I know everyone around the table would have went, oh crap, he's doing this.
Those moments are what we live for. I'm sorry that never happened.
No, it's fine. I'm sure now that I put it in your head, something's going to happen.
Maybe. I don't. We'll see. We'll see what happens. These characters are literally starting a whole nother campaign with the same characters.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll put that in my notes. We'll see what happens. That's another thing. Talk to your DM about what you want your character to go through. You want your character to go through an arc, tell them. Like, that's cool. That is cool stuff to happen. If you are like, I want to be a cowboy that gets revenge on my arch rival, tell your DM that. Get that arch rival in there, and back to the failure. You don't want to come in and shoot him episode 1.
No, I think again, Venturing Academy said something similar like that.
Yeah.
You don't want to instantly get revenge, because what happened with our BBG, he showed up probably 4 or 5 times just kind of taunting us. And I think he actually, no, she died to a monster in the forest. Because Kobe, and then we had to fly her
Yes.
up, and but we
fully incidental death. Actually.
Yeah,
now that you think about it, that's kind of weird.
But we went down. A few of us, I think, in the last battle. I want to say Van went down, but Van and Ace had a ring, but Van had taken hers off of life sharing. Van had taken hers off and not told Ace about it. And so the player at the table had gone to the bathroom, and then Van told the rest of us. And so he didn't even know about it when he came back.
Yeah.
And he kind of looks at her like there's a real look of betrayal almost when she goes, "Oh, I went down." And then he goes, "I do too." And I think you went, "No, you don't."
Yeah. So the way the ring was supposed to work is whichever one of those characters went to 0 HP, instead of going down, any more HP would be taken from the other character's hit point pool. And I was like, this does 40 damage. How much do you have left? And she's like, 7, I'm down. And he was like, no, I take damage. And I was like, no, you don't. And that it clicked in their head like, and this is the character that his whole shtick was like, I'm a prince and I care about my wife. He commissioned this ring to be made to protect her, and that's a roleplay shtick. It all is coming full circle, but it's those moments of just that drama, that intense, that fear. And honestly, Ace was kind of kicking ass in the fight.
Oh, he was.
And now all of a sudden, for roleplay reasons, he's like...
He immediately stopped and went, I'm no longer fighting. I'm going to save my wife.
Now he has to think, I have 1 spell slot left.
And I think he did... Was it mass? It wasn't mass healing.
It was cure wounds.
Yeah, it was cure wounds, but it was the highest level.
Yeah.
And that was his last spell slot that he had.
But I've kind of been one of the 2 or 3 here kicking ass, and now I'm going to stop, turn around, take an opportunity attack, take some damage myself for this roleplay moment. And he almost went down to the opportunity attack.
Mm-hmm.
He only had like 3 or 4 HP after that. But it's those moments that are just... It's what's beautiful about this game.
Well, I don't have much else to say because we can switch topics for another podcast.
I think we've kind of hit all our main points that we wanted to talk about.
All right. Good to go.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys.